Good evening, members of the gallery, staff and councillors. Welcome to this special council meeting, being today's date, Monday the 30th of June 2025. And this special council meeting tonight is consideration of the following reports, being the 25 to 26 differential general rates and minimum payment submissions, and the 2025 to 2026 financial year budget. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. I'll advise all members of the gallery that are here tonight that tonight's meeting, as per any other meeting that we hold here, will be live streamed and will also be audio recorded. If you're asking a public question or making a deputation or a statement to this meeting, we request that you take a seat to the table that you can see in front of yourselves tonight. I'll also remind all members of the public that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. That brings us to agenda item number 1. Agenda item number 1 is attendance and apologies. There are no apologies received and there are no leaves of absence. That brings us on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is public question time. I'll declare public question time commence now at 7:02 p.m. I'd like to ask Mr. Bill Denholm of Karrakup to come forward and please ask his question.
Bill Denham, Karrakup. Thanks, councillors and officers. At the last electors' meeting, a motion to purchase 2 drones and suitable training was passed unanimously. Then council, through a motion, requested a business case be prepared, voted in unopposed. Now we have budget time and I can't see any mention of drones in this year's budget. Has a business case been done as requested? And then B, how much would this cost to purchase the 2 drones with suitable training of officers? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Denholm, for your question. I would ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Denham, for the question. By way of background, in response to the motion passed at the annual electors meeting, Council resolved the following at the 19th of May ordinary council meeting. And I'll just quote that. That Council requests the Chief Executive Officer prepare a budget submission to fund a business case for the 25-26 budget, detailing a comprehensive needs analysis including specific use cases, regulatory requirements, staff capability needs, cost-benefit considerations, risk management measures including privacy and data governance. In recommending the above resolution, it was anticipated that the Shire would require funds to engage a consultant to assist officers in researching application and potential benefits for drone technologies at the Shire. However, upon further analysis of this, officers are confident in being able to complete this work using existing resources, i.e. at no cost, which is why there is no specific line item in the budget to produce this business case. Once completed, the research will be able to be presented to Council during the 25-26 financial year. The research undertaken to date suggests that the drone most appropriate for the Shire's needs costs approximately $8,249 per drone, inclusive of training.
Thank you for your answer, Director. Mr Denholm, would you like to ask your second question, please?
Yeah, sure. In this year's budget, under Parks Renewal number 80588, a backnet and drink fountain installation at Upper Briggs Park is mentioned for $186,312. As it's a very specific figure and a large one at that, could I please have a detailed breakdown including internal overhead costs on this item, please?
Thank you for your second question, Mr Denholm. This time I'd ask the Director of Operations to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Denholm, for your question. In the draft budget, the project is comprised of $7,000 for the drink fountain installation, $149,305 for the installation and of the backnet, $30,007 in contingency, and officer time required for this project will be funded through general operations.
Thank you, Director. Mr Denholm, would you like to ask your third question, please?
Yep. Third question is, what guarantee do ratepayers that the budget adopted tonight by council will be acted on? As going back to my councillor days, in the 2021 budget, Council of the Day allocated funds to purchase a soil screener. Now, this was to screen the road drainage material so it could be repurposed. One, did the council officers purchase the screener, because I haven't heard of one, as allocated, and if not, where did the allocated funds go?
Thank you for your third question, Mr Denholm. Again, I'll ask the Director of Operations to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President, and once again, thank you, Mr. Denholm. So during the 2022-23 carry forwards process, the funds for the waste material processing plant were returned to the waste reserve, pending further investigation, and was approved by Council at the October 2022 Ordinary Council meeting, as per the budget variation seen on the screen.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Denholm. I'd now like to ask Ms Kelly Berry to come forward and ask her questions.
Good evening, everyone. Could Shire officers please...
Sorry, Ms Berry, I'll just get you to state your name for the record and your suburb of residence, or within the Shire if that's more.
Kelly Berry, resident of the Shire.
Thank you.
Could
Please continue.
Could Shire officers please confirm that Councillor Fees and Entitlements Council policy was reviewed and updated in August 2024 to allow councillors to receive the maximum annual allowance and sitting fee for a Band 2 council? And if it was, which councillors or Shire officers recommended this change from the previous 75%?
I thank you for your question, Ms Berry, and I'd ask the Director of Corporate Services please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Ms Berry. Yes, the policy was reviewed and updated in August 2024, and the details of this decision are outlined in the minutes of that meeting.
Thank you, Director. Ms Berry, would you like to ask your second question?
Can the CEO please detail the process needed for any change in the budgeting purposes for Shire officers to allocate any other percentage other than the maximum stated in the Councillor Fees and Entitlements Council policy?
Thank you for your second question, Ms Berry. Again, I would ask the Director of Corporate Services please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995, council are required to determine annually the fees and allowances for elected members within the Band 2 range determined by the Salaries and Allowance Tribunal. Officers are presented a draft budget and it's open to council to resolve any percentages of the fees within the range and make any other changes in the adopted budget.
Thank you, Director. Ms Berry, would you like to ask your third question, please?
Sorry, can I just clarify? So, to use another percentage, what do you need?
Ms Berry, the question has been answered. I'd now ask you to please ask your third question. Thank you.
I don't believe it has, but okay. Can the CEO please state the date and time of day of any alternate or amended motion received to change the maximum allowance to a different percentage, and which councillor submitted the alternate or amended motion?
Thank you for your third question, Ms Berry. I'm going to ask the Chief Executive Officer to provide a response, and then I'll add a response as well. Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, Ms Berry. Thank you for the question. Mine's a bit of a long answer, so bear with me. So I guess in looking at your question, we went back to what is the purpose of the council, and the purpose of the council is to make good, well-informed decisions. We achieve this by, in part, encouraging elected members to circulate alternative motions, which they most often have worked with officers on to prepare, to their fellow elected members prior to the meeting. This enables elected members to have received, and have time to reflect and consider any alternatives prior to the meeting. Furthermore, an elected member's circulation of an alternative motion does not necessarily mean it will be their position or that the alternative motion will even be moved or foreshadowed during the meeting, Decisions are only made in the meeting itself. So the standard we use in answering public questions is, can this information be available under Freedom of Information Act? Now, the FOI Act Exemption 6 refers to processes that relate to deliberative processes. And we consider that what you're asking for in the details of who submitted an alternative at what time for what amount is somewhat deliberative, partly as well because alternative motions can be received right up to the meeting time itself. So there's a whole lot of moving parts in that. Doesn't mean you can't request it. We're just suggesting that you request it after the meeting, either under the FOI process or at a future council meeting, and then we'd be happy to give you the information.
Thank you for your response, Mr CEO. I would only add to that as presiding member. My role as presiding member is to ensure that there are good decisions being made by this council. My concern would be that if any member of the public wanted a list or circulation of any alternate motions prior to a meeting, that could then go directly against my role in ensuring good decision makings. I'll explain that by saying it may well be that councillors would be too concerned to circulate alternate motions prior to a meeting at the risk of those alternate motions getting out to the public. Thank you for your third question.
Just a thought to leave you with tonight.
Thank you, Ms Berry.
Doesn't mean you should.
It is now 7:11 p.m. We've only had 9 minutes of public questions. Are there any members of the gallery that would like to come forward and ask a question? Thank you, Mr Tomlinson. Please come forward and state your name and your suburb of residence if you're able to, or a resident of the Shire is sufficient.
Good evening, everybody. Gary Thompson. I live in Jarrahdale. My first question is, well, I can't remember how and when it happened, but with the size of the Shire, why do we only have 7 councillors, unlike other shires have up to 9?
Thank you for your question, Mr Tomlinson. I'm looking at Mr CEO to provide a response to that question.
Thank you, Mr President. The council some time ago agreed to do a ward and representation review which reduced the numbers of councillors down to what we have today.
And you will notice, Mr Tomlinson, there are only 6 councillors due to the resignation of a councillor from the North West Ward around March of this year.
Yep. Okay. My second question is, so with that change, how much money has the Shire saved by doing this?
Thank you for your second question, Mr Tomlinson. I'm looking at the Director of Corporate Services. I'm not sure whether he's in a position to answer that question to the exact dollar figure.
If we could just have a moment to consult the budget
Thank you,
document.
Director.
Would you like to send it to me in writing?
Sorry, Mr Thompson, we'll just give the Director a moment and the Manager. I think the calculator's come out, so it shouldn't be much longer. Thank you, Director.
As an estimate, it will be in the order of $40,000 a year.
Does
Thank
that
you,
include, does that include sitting fees and all that as well?
So,
Yes. However, what council resolve and what councillors take is different sometimes. In other words, council resolves and then some councillors take less.
Okay.
thank you, Director. Mr Tomlinson, do you have a third question?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Tomlinson. Members of the gallery, that's 7:14 p.m. We've still got 3 minutes of public question time. Is anyone like to come forward and ask a question? Thank you, Mrs Bond. While Mrs Bond is coming up, there's a lady and gentleman in the front row that was looking for a pen to write something down. Did you want to ask a question? Thank you.
Who is responsible
Sorry, can you
for-
please
Oh,
state your name and your residence, please?
Mrs Bond, the Box, Armidale.
Thank you, Mrs Bond.
Who is responsible for the compilation and operation of the Your Say SJ website, Shire corporate website, Shire Facebook page?
Thank you for your question, Mrs Bond. Director of Community Engagement, are you able to provide a response?
The Shire's digital platforms are managed by the Shire's communications team.
Thank you, Director. Mrs Bond, do you have a
Shire's communication team. Oh, didn't know we had one of them.
Thank you, Director. Mrs Bond, do you have a second question?
Isn't it true when ratepayers place their correspondence through info@SJ, it cannot be manipulated, lost or ignored?
Thank you for your second question. I'll just pause there, and it's remiss of me as presiding member not to remind members of the public of this, but questions tonight can only be in relation to items that are on the agenda because it is a special council meeting. I'll give you some latitude. Can you please,
That is in there. Have a
can you
look.
please ask the question again?
Yeah. Isn't it true that when ratepayers place their correspondence through info@SJ, it cannot be manipulated, lost or ignored? It's in there, you've got a big diagram there.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs Bond. I'll ask the CEO to provide some advice and a response potentially to that question.
Thank you, Mr President. Thank you, Mrs Bond, for the question. I would certainly say that's our intention. However, I wouldn't guarantee that emails haven't been responded to at any particular time in the past. We certainly, this 12 months coming up, will be looking to improve that process and to ensure that if emails are sent to info@SJ Shire, that they are captured in a more accurate way and ensured they are responded to, and if not responded to, then escalated for a response. So I wouldn't think they're manipulated. Some may have not been responded to. I wouldn't like to say all of them have, but we certainly are looking to improve that, if that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Mrs Bond, do you want to ask your third question, please?
How much money has been saved since we reduced our number of councillors, and why is it necessary to increase the rates again this year?
Thank you for your third question. I think your third question has been answered in part by Mr Tomlinson's question that the Director provided a response to. The other comment I would make as a President is we have had one less member since March, and that round figures didn't include councillors training or councillors mentoring and other
But
money.
did I hear an amount?
Well, I think the Director's given the best amount, and that's about $40,000. If you use $20,000 of sitting fees, and there's an extra $3,000 for IT, plus other allowances. So the answer has been given by the Director, and your next part of your question, I'll go to the Director of Corporate Services again to provide a response to the second part. Do you need that repeated, Director?
Yes, please.
You want me to repeat the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mrs Bond.
How much money has been saved since we reduced our number of councillors, and why is it necessary to increase rates again this year?
So I think the first part's been answered, Mrs Bond. Director, if you could please answer that second part about a potential rate increase. Thank you.
Okay, so CPI is at 2.8 for the Perth region. So that's the base. Our costs also rise in accordance with CPI. Secondly, it's come to the organisation and council's attention that the true cost of the lifting our road network to a reasonable level, 40% of our roads are at what we call Class 4 or Class 5. In other words, they're at end of life. We need about $100 million to fix the Class 5 of those. And so in response to that challenge, officers are recommending an additional 2% go on the rate increase this year to start to raise funds to address that issue.
Thank you for your answer, Director. Thank you for your three questions, Mrs Bond.
And no calculator.
That is now 7:19 p.m. We have given 15 minutes for public questions. I don't believe there's any other members of the public that indicated they wanted to ask a question. So I'll declare public question closed now at 7:19 p.m. We now move to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3 is public statement time, and I declare public statement time commenced at 7:19 p.m. We have received a statement from a Mr. Greg Cooper from Cardup. Is Mr. Cooper here? I will put on the record to ask the CEO or the Director of Corporate Services whether there has been any correspondence to the Shire allowing another member of the public to make the statement on behalf of Mr. Cooper.
Not what we're aware of.
No, thank you, Director. But for Mr. Cooper, if he's listening at home, it has been received by the President and councillors and it has been read. That brings us on to another public statement that has been received, and that was received by Mr. Nick Clayton. I would now like to ask Mr. Clayton to come forward and make his statement. And as you're moving forward, Mr. Clayton, I remind you, you have 3 minutes for public statements. Thank you, Mr. Clayton.
I was told that, hence I've had to shorten my spiel a little bit. Nick Clayton, good evening, my name is Nick Clayton. I have been a resident of the Shire for approximately 17 years. I will declare I'm a board member of Landcare SJ, but the opinions expressed tonight are mine solely as an individual. My public statement is entitled, "This is not okay." 2025 will certainly be remembered as a year where bullying seems to be acceptable on the world stage, but we need the power of the people to reject such abhorrent behaviour, and so I start now. I express my absolute disgust at the ongoing personal attacks directed at the elected members and the flow on to the public serving officers of the Shire. This is not okay. To those seated in front of me, I want to assure you that this absolute minority of cowards and public nuisances do not reflect the attitude of the electorate. We forget you, just like us, are people, have feelings, families, qualities and imperfections just like us. I was actually quite distressed on Saturday on my weekly visit to the Mundajon markets to see Mr. Cole's demeanour, and necessitated a need to stand up tonight and speak against the despicable behaviour that seemingly was responsible for his demeanour. To some of those seated behind me, have a serious look at yourselves. I'll be the first person to stand in support of every individual's right to express his opinion. However, your venom and vitriol defines you and not an appropriate way to express a differing opinion. It is utterly unacceptable to a small but vocal minority made up of keyboard warriors and individuals, many of whom have been previously rejected by the voters of this Shire, feel entitled to undermine, criticise and personally vilify our democratically elected council. This is not okay. What makes this behaviour even more disgraceful is that these individuals hiding behind their screens have cowardly turned their attacks towards the President's own daughter, a young woman who had every right to stand up for her father and question the use of vile, obscene language being directed at him. For them to attack her, someone who is not an elected official, simply by defending her family is a new low, and it speaks volumes about the character of those involved. Even worse than the vile keyboard warriors themselves, who are extensively just mindless sheep, some of the people behind them hide such venom behind their public stooges without even the moral compass or intestinal fortitude to speak their own disruptions, to support their own disruptions. This is not okay. The triggers for these latest attacks, the current proposal for a rise in remuneration for the presidents and councillors. Let's break that down to pure economics. Our closest neighbour, the City of Armidale, has a mayor rather than a president. I have had many interactions with Ms Ruth Butterfield. She is an extremely capable woman, and according to the published documents, will be paid $167,051 this financial year. Have all the paperwork there to substantiate that. Our Shire President received considerably less than half that in the last financial year. In fact, the total budget of all councillors this financial year is $202,000, $202,937, just $35,000 against one elected member on a neighbouring council. On this basis alone, I support the motion put forward tonight. The residents of the Shire of Serpentine-Jarrahdale deserve better. We're here to work together with integrity, with respect for democracy, and with a focus on building a strong future for this community in what is one of the largest growing municipalities in Australia. To accommodate that unprecedented growth, we need to adequately remunerate those empowered to preside over such critical decisions. Again, why I support the motion put forward tonight. Attempts to twist this into a narrative of self-interest or personal gain by the elected members are not only misleading, they are dishonest, designed to stir up public anger and fuel personal agendas. This toxic behaviour does nothing to advance our community. It is divisive, cowardly and demonstrates a complete disregard for facts, process and respect for others. Elections are the rightful avenue for shaping leadership, not online abuse, personal vendettas or attacks on family members. This is not okay. I have personally witnessed recently this toxic behaviour in other community groups, and there appears to be a common thread, or more accurately, the same community disruptors. The only lighter moment that I find quite perversely entertaining is the irony that this Facebook group that have actually named themselves Byford and Community Whingers and Bitches.
Mr Clayton, you have exceeded 3 minutes. I was trying to hear the noise from the countdown time, which I've evidently missed. So
I have one last paragraph, Mr President, if I can.
You have exceeded your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Clayton, for your statement. Are there any other members of the public? I would actually like to remind all members of the public, I'm more than happy for members of the public to attend these meetings, but if people decide that they need to talk amongst themselves, I would ask you to please leave the chamber so you can have those personal conversations. The reason I say that is because, as I said at the start of the meeting, this is being recorded, and I certainly don't want any interruptions or any background noise to the recordings. It's a legal requirement that these meetings are recorded, so I would ask that people in the gallery refrain from talking. Was there a statement that would like to be made from the gallery? Thank you, Mr Denholm. Come forward. On your way forward, Mr Denholm, I would remind people of 11.d of the standing orders, and that is that all statements are to be without malice or to embarrass councillors or staff, and any statement tonight needs to be pertaining to the items on the agenda. Thank you, Mr Denholm.
I've got a couple of points to cover in my statement tonight. Firstly is regarding my question about the net and drinking fountain at Briggs Park. $186,312 of ratepayers' money for a goal net and drinking fountain. Now, I don't think people understand the usage of Briggs Park to come up with that idea. So it's only a junior club that plays at Briggs Park, and only the year 10s and above use the full oval. So there's a team in year 10s and there's a team of combined 11s and 12s. So there's only two teams that use the full width, full length oval. And there's only having one in each age group, and half the season's played away. That means there's only roughly 16 games in total where the full oval is used. People that aren't familiar with football, the 7s, 8s and 9s, the younger ones, they actually play on the same width but a reduced length. So they're 15 metres in from each end. So the net really ain't going to do anything because it's 20 X metres from where the goals are placed, the temporary goals. Then you've got the younger ones even still, and they go down either side of the cricket pitch. So the actual goals are in the middle. They're not, the younger ovals are only, the goals aren't utilised in them as well. So really it's only two teams that we're going to spend $186,000 for 2 years because Central's Junior is going to Kiernan Street. So while it might be for safety, I think the $186,000 ratepayers' dollars would be better utilised doing a perimeter fence around the BMX track because they've been forgotten again, and they got people throwing rocks at them and walking across their track. So a perimeter fence around that. And I was surprised at the cost of the drones being $8,000 plus training. So surely that would be of more benefit to the ratepayers as a whole compared to a drinking fountain and a net that's only going to be used 15 times a year. I think that would pass the pub test rather than the net, even though we've got safety problems everywhere. The budget, because the councillors agree to the budget, I just want to reinstate that it's up to the officers to actually use what's given to them by councillors. So councillors can elect to do things regarding the budget, but it doesn't mean that the officers go ahead and purchase or whatever, use that money, because things can change. Last of all is the raising of the subject of councillors' fees.
Thank you, Mr Denholm. That is 3 minutes. I did hear the beep that time.
Is that 3
Thank you.
minutes?
That's 3 minutes. Thank you. Are there any other members of the gallery who'd like to come forward and make a statement? Thank you, Mr Atwell.
David Atwell, Mundijong. Firstly, I'd like to bring up the matter on the budget tonight of the Byford Trotting Complex. Last council meeting I brought up about the presence of the new office in Byford. Now we're coming up with a proposal to reduce the rates of people in the Byford Trotting Complex. There is a whole pile of dirt around the area that's not just in Byford. And to actually put one place with, just because it's got a few horses, it's got a trotting complex, ahead of other people in the whole Shire who have horses, etc., is going to set one of the precedents that if it was me and I lived in Serpentine and someone in Byford was going to get this, I would be mighty pissed off. There's also the fact that they're probably 20 years too late. That complex, I would doubt now whether it has more than about 20 or 25% of actual trotting people in it. The rest has been taken over by future developers, people who wish to have a home there on a large block. And I can't see any merit whatsoever in doing that. And it's just bewildering to me how now everything seems to be, we'll move to Byford. We'll do this in Byford. What about the rest of the Shire? That is one thing I would like to say. The other thing I would like to say is also that the use of social media has been something that has been going on in the Shire for quite some time now. Some of the people who are now whinging about social media are the very people who use social media to get where they are today, and I find it quite bewildering that they're now crying wolf because someone else is using social media against them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Atwell. Is any other members of the public like to come forward and make a statement? Mrs Bond, would you like to come forward? While Mrs Bond is on her way up, is there any other members of the public who would like to make a statement after Mrs Bond?
You always say that because I'm so slow getting up here.
Thank you, Mrs Bond.
Why continue pushing ratepayers to a site they often cannot access for a number of non-acceptable reasons? All information relating to monies and for whatever reason should be clearly identified exactly, and if any funding by any other source other than the ratepayer, it should be clearly identified, also for the benefit of the ratepayer. Where is the justification for rate increases when we no longer have the same number of councillors and blind Freddie can see the absolute financial waste of ratepayer monies? As stated in the agenda tonight, perceived rating inequity. Some submissions express the view that businesses, rural residential properties should contribute a higher share of rates. The response from Council to this: one of the core principles of the Shire's fair rating strategy is equity, ensuring that each property contributes fairly to the rate base, based on a method of valuation that accurately reflects its predominant use. What a load of rubbish. Is it fair to charge $2,000 plus for a rural residential property? They pay for their own bin service, ESL, and they get nothing at all for the rates they pay. They usually compost the food waste, don't ask for street lights, shops, don't get their verges cleaned up. They have to provide and maintain their water supply, including drinking water. They provide, maintain and pay for their own sewage treatment plant. So where the hell does the above statement apply fairly to these ratepayers? You acknowledge our high rates, but you don't acknowledge some of us are being shamefully abused with the rates we pay and getting nothing for them.
Thank you, Mrs Bond, for your statement. Statement time is now concluded at 7:34 p.m. and that brings us on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is petitions and deputations, which there are nil. That brings us on to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is declaration of elected members and officers' interest. I have received one disclosure of interest by Councillor Nathan Bishop. That pertains to agenda item 6.2 being considered by the special council meeting and the council tonight being the 30th of June 2025. The nature of the interest that Councillor Bishop would like to declare is impartiality interest. The nature of Councillor Bishop's interest is that he is a member of the Oakford Volunteer Bushfire Brigade and the extent of his interest is impartiality, given funding for the new Oakford Fire Station is considered in the item. I have received no other declarations. Have you received any, Mr CEO?
I haven't, Mr President. It doesn't mean elected members or officers can't declare them now or when they become aware of them.
Thank you, Mr CEO. That brings us on to agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 is reports for consideration. Agenda item 6.1 is consideration of submissions at 2025-2026 differential general rates and minimum payments. Is there a councillor happy to move the officer's recommendation or another motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is that the officer's recommendation?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Is there a councillor happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 6.2. Agenda item 6.2 is consideration of the 2025-2026 financial year budget. I have received a motion that was circulated by Councillor Duggan. That initially was circulated at the start of last week and there has been some amendments to that motion. Now, Councillor Duggan, there is a motion there. Can you just confirm that is the one that you wanted to be moved tonight and the one that you amended today? If that is the case, you're happy to move it?
Yes, I confirm. However, if I may make a last-minute amendment, and that is the additional of an amendment that was circulated by Councillor Bishop, a point that was circulated by Councillor Bishop earlier on today. If that amendment could become part of the substantive motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. You'll need to read that out so we can put it on the screen and you're happy with it. And then you'll need to, or then I'll call for a seconder for that motion.
So that would be a point 15, Councillor Duggan?
Yes, point 15, thank you. Unless it's deemed more appropriate by the Director of Corporate Services to add it back into point 8, which also discusses the member fees, the elected member fees.
On the end's okay. It doesn't affect the
Okay,
flow
thank
of
you.
the motion.
Thank you. I'm happy for it to be added at the end as point 15 then. Thank you.
So, Councillor Duggan, it is up on the screen now. Can you just confirm you're happy with that? And if you are, then I'll call for a seconder for the motion.
Perhaps, Mr President, for the benefit of the gallery, as we would normally do, Councillor Duggan might just talk to some of the different points from the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Thank you. Before you do that, Councillor Duggan, you just want to make sure you're happy with point 15?
Yes, I'm happy
Okay,
with
thank
point
you.
15. Thank you.
And as the CEO quite rightly suggested, would you like to go through the alternate motion in difference to the officer's recommendation?
Certainly. So point 4 is an alteration to change the differential rating that properties with mining tenements within our shire are rated at, and it can be seen there that that would look at increasing revenue by almost $55,000. That money is specifically go to the Road and Bridge Asset Management Reserve. The point 5 is in regards to an action against the polyphagous shot hole borer. So there's $100,000 that has come from waste transfer, which has been deemed as being an appropriate place for this money to come from. To fund that, the point 8 is elected members' fees, which is to have the elected members' fees sit at 90% of the Band 2 allowance. And point 14 is to look at depoliticising that in future elections. Point 11 talks about lighting, which we have received great concern from our residents that needs to be assessed. So you'll see there's a number of alterations in the officer's recommendation to the budget to find $137,000 to go towards that. And also point 14 is to do a updated condition assessment of our roads so that we can then put forward a revised and improved and more relevant roads forward works plan. Simply because since the last one was done, our roads, especially in our South Ward, have significantly altered, and I believe that the old one is no longer relevant. And I think I have covered everything there.
I believe you have. Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a councillor happy to second this motion? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed? I think members of the public can keep their hands down. Unfortunately, you don't get to vote. Thank you, Councillor Mack. That being the case, Councillor Duggan, would you like to open debate?
Certainly. This budget coming together has had many moving parts, so it is a little difficult to preempt what Councillor Mack would like further discussion on. So I shall do a little bit of a vague run over everything that is the alterations that I've put forward, and also add some of the parts in the conversation that were put forward in the officer's recommendation in the first place that I know have been part of conversation during our budget meetings. So the first thing I'd like to comment on is the 2% for roads. That 2% is specifically to go only to roads and bridge reserve. What is it that we are constantly being told by our residents? Every survey we do, they say it's roads. This is the first time that we have a budget that we specific and very clearly and transparently say that this money will be going to roads. To sum this up for our residents, and I admit that to start with I was very hesitant about this, but the money, the numbers, they add up. An additional 2% in this year will bring an extra $647,479. But then what this does is it then fires up state government funding. So that will actually result in an additional $2.24 million just in roadworks. The idea of this motion is that with this 2%, it actually starts the ball rolling, and then we request our councillors that are sitting in the next year and the next financial year to also look at 2%. And if they do that, with this money specifically going towards roads, we will result in an additional $67 million. That's the difference between $104 million and $171 million. That is just something that I know our residents need. I know it's something that when I look at the deaths on our roads, I know we need to be very cognisant of and we need to be considering. That old saying that you need to spend money to make money, and this is a very, very classic example of that. If I may talk to the Trotting Complex, I hear the comments from the audience about, why is this being put forward? We do already have an intensive farmland rate, which is a decreased rate for our rural area. So this is not something new. This is not something that has not been used in the Shire before. This has been put in place because I've spoken to a number of people in the trotting complex, and as Mr Atwell referred to, the number of trotting trainers has decreased significantly, and we need to know why. And when I've asked, there's been two things that have come up constantly. One is the amount of cars on Briggs Road, and the other is the increased motorbikes that illegally use the trails. I'm really happy to say that with Indigo Parkway, with the purchases, the land purchases that we've made, so the Indigo Parkway can go ahead, the cars on Briggs Road will change significantly, will decrease and solve that problem. That's awesome. Now we've got to deal with the other problem, the motorbikes. The best way to resolve the motorbikes issue is trying to bring back more and more people into the trotting complex who use the trotting complex and use those bikeways and use the trotting track. And then just by numbers, you end up with those who are using motorbikes will cease or at least drop significantly. So that is why I think that this 30% decrease in rates is such a good idea. It offers a reassurance that not only do we support the trotting trainers, but we are looking at a long-term solution to help them to stay in the area, because without that trotting complex, we just become another southeast suburb in the growing urban sprawl. And I certainly don't want that for Byford. I certainly don't want that for our Shire. And I'm certainly hoping that my other councillors don't either. Just a brief discussion on cutting the CCTV amount. I do not want to look at cutting that amount completely, simply because I think it is a great incentive for our residents, and especially with the way that our community is changing, it's important that we are offering that CCTV financial assistance. Last year, just under $28,000 was spent. This year, the budget was for $40,000. Considering the amount of time and advertising that was put into making sure residents knew about it, I thought we could safely look at dropping that back to $30,000. So it's certainly not saying that I don't want the CCTV to be, allowance to be supported. It's just I could see that there was perhaps money that could be dropped back from there. The biggest cost that I'm introducing as a single entity is the $100,000 for the polyphagous shot hole borer. My first thoughts on this is seriously not fair. This is a problem that was not resolved at Fremantle Port as it should have been. Regardless of that, we now find ourselves in a situation where we are at the front line of where this little bug is going, and we have huge risks to our orchards, to our bushland. We need to be putting our efforts into it now to try and slow its spread, no different to COVID, in that the more you can slow its spread, the more it gives our scientists time to try and resolve and find ways that they can deal with this. It's the necessity of them having to try and find a solution for all the damage that's been done in the Central Perth area. That is moving along that research so quickly, and we can get the benefit of that providing we try and keep it to where the areas that are affected now and try and get it out of those areas in the Shire. So that's why that $100,000 to fund staff to directly test for the shot hole borer is to just purely to be on the front foot so we can try and limit the spread. And with that, I shall pass over to my fellow councillors to hear their responses.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Councillor Jarrett, would you like to speak or reserve?
I reserve, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Councillor Mack, would you like to speak against the motion?
Thank you, Mr President. And firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for their time and the councillors for their alternate motions. A lot of work does go into these. I'm going to start my debate this year exactly where I started my debate last year, and talk about how it is not the actions that we talk about on council rates nights during our rates meetings, but the actions of councillors and decisions we make all year that lead to our position on what we have to do in our debates. After this discussion last year, we were made aware that we would be seeing a massive increase in our rates before we even start to put our rates up. We're going to see an increase in our emergency services levy, which for some residents of our shire will be a roughly 8% rate increase before we even start. We have known about this all year. This year, we have seen a lack of state and federal funding that have been to support our exponential growth that we see in our shire. We do need help with our funding. We desperately need to improve our roads, but we cannot continue to put this cost burden onto our ratepayers. In saying that, why do I say that? Let's actually go and have a look at a bit of a rates comparison. Now, this was taken from last year's rates, and I do acknowledge they are a little bit older information, but the details are still very, very relevant this year. Last year, when the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale had a rates increase of 2.9% when compared, let's just take the City of Gosnells, for example, who had a 4% increase. Our 2.9% increase equated to a $125 rate increase for our ratepayers versus a 4% increase at Gosnells, which equated to a $66 rate increase. That is because the average rateable amount per property in our shire is so high already. We cannot simply continue to put up our rates. If there's one thing that we have been doing a lot lately is we've been listening to our community. One initiative that we've taken is to take our PCFs, council and the community, out to the public to hear what people have to say. Whilst I've been pushing for a change for this format, we have had all of our council in the community events in the South Ward, and all bar one of our PCFs have also been in the South. We have continually heard from the South. So when Mr Atwell's comments from before, we are definitely hearing from the residents of the South Ward. What we're not hearing from is the rest of our shire, who are telling us how much the cost of living crisis is hurting them at the moment. We cannot continue to simply put up our rates to fund these. Are we listening to the communications from our ratepayers? One thing that they have said is that they wanted our tip to reopen. Yet, earlier this year, we approved to spend another $40,000 to do a survey to ask our ratepayers if they wanted the tip open. Why did we need to spend the $40,000 to find out what we already knew? Why did we agree to pay double the amount of the City of Gosnells to be a partner in the Switch Your Thinking program? Maybe that's why the City of Gosnells rates are so much lower than ours, because they are paying half to be a partner in programs like that than we are paying. Once again, our ratepayers are bearing the burden of these decisions. We've accepted huge budget blowouts on some major projects without any thoughts for the ratepayer and where that might end up by leaving them. Why do we simply keep accepting huge budget blowouts without consequence? I then want to talk to some of our election advocacy. I've had some problems with this election advocacy because we have had some councillors who I believe have had conflicts of interest. One of these councillors advocated for their own project, a community project that they were leading that was not in line with council's advocacy policy, and netted a $250,000 commitment from the state government. That's the equivalent of almost a 1% rate increase. In fact, I think, to be more precise, it's approximately 0.8% of our rates increase. That is money that we now need to find from our ratepayers to fund projects in our shire. I do agree that the borer is a massive problem for our shire. It is a problem that should have been absolutely squashed when it was just in the City of Fremantle. But a lack of action from our state government has seen us in this position where it is on our doorstep. Yet we have now been made aware that there are going to be state grants to help local governments to fund the problem. We don't know what we're going to get in the way of these grants, but what, are we just going to charge the ratepayers more money just in case we don't get enough from the state government? I can't accept that just in case. Finally, I want to look at one of the areas that we found was some money that was sitting in our waste reserve. Our waste reserve has been getting some extra money put into it because we do not have a tip operating. We are charging the ratepayers for the operations of a tip that they are not getting the service for. This is a service our ratepayers are paying for that they are not getting. Why can we not just put some of that money back into the budget itself and reduce the rates? Let's give the money back to the ratepayers for the service that they have not been getting. And I want to finish out by just saying, as I've said before, that all year I have been stating to councillors, this is a great idea, it's a great project and a great initiative, but the timing is just not right. We can't afford it, not for now. Once our growth gets to a point where we have enough residents, that we have enough rates, we can start kicking some of these goals. But for now, we cannot continue just to put this rates burden on our rates payers who are already struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Does anyone else like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. President and councillors. I want to speak to the community on 2 points. Firstly, about why it is important as a matter of principle that the total rates collected by the Shire increase annually. I'd also like to talk about remuneration for councillors, given this has become a bit of a hot topic in the community. Firstly, to the issue of rates. Particularly with this year being an election year, you're going to hear a lot of people promising you that if you elect them to this council, they'll lower or they'll freeze your rates. And when you see people saying that, I'd like you to remind yourselves and your neighbours that you can't fix a road with good intentions, you can't pave a footpath with political slogans, and you can't collect the rubbish by posting it on social media. You do those things by responsibly managing the finances of the local government, including to collect the income, the rates, required not only for the day-to-day service delivery of the Shire, but also for investment in new or improved services and infrastructure for the communities within which we all live. To tell our community that we can deliver more with less is not just unrealistic, it's cheap politics, and achieves more for an individual's election campaign than it ever will for the community. We need people at this table who are prepared to invest in the future, not hold us back in the past and themselves in power on promises that they can't keep. There's no mistaking that our local government has a long way to go towards meeting community expectations. And that's a shame because local governments are here for some pretty basic things that we all rely upon: footpaths, roads, rubbish collection, public spaces, community health and safety. That we're behind on the basics is embarrassing. It doesn't have to be that way, but changing things takes time and it takes money. And it takes councillors who are prepared to set aside their own reputation and popularity to take the challenging and unpopular decisions that, yes, won't change things overnight, but will deliver for our community's future. When you open your front door in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale, I want you to be able to take a few steps, or for our rural residents, many more steps, and walk out onto a footpath, a safe, maintained and inviting footpath. I want that footpath to be able to take you somewhere, not just to a dead end, but perhaps a cafe run by a local family, or a place to sit for a moment to watch your kids play, or to catch your breath before or after a long day. I want our town centres to be full of life, small businesses, parks and playgrounds. And I want your walk along that footpath to be stress-free. I don't want you dodging cars or navigating cracked paths. I don't want you hesitating at unsafe intersections, wondering if choosing to walk instead of drive is putting your safety at risk. You shouldn't have to choose between staying active and staying safe. I want your walk to have a detour, but not an inconvenience, an opportunity. A detour through green spaces, and I hope under tree canopies filled with our beloved black cockatoos. I want there to be a park bench that invites you to pause. If you've got children, I want them to laugh and run in play spaces that spark imagination, while you, a busy parent, a shift worker, a carer, get a moment of peace and pride in the place you call home. If you've got a dog, I want them to be able to have places to run freely, as well as places where you can be sure that everyone's dog is on a lead, or that there are supplies available to ensure everyone's dog is picked up after. These are such simple things. Or maybe your days start before the sun rises and long after it sets. I want this community to feel as safe and inviting at night as it would during the day. And as much as I want our community to invite you to walk, let's be real. We're going to have to get in the car and drive at some point. I want your drive to feel safe. I want the road outside your home, whether you live on a cul-de-sac in Byford or a winding stretch in Jarrahdale, to be smooth, well marked and designed so everyone knows how to behave behind the wheel. I want you to be able to see oncoming traffic because the verge isn't overgrown. I want the Shire to step in where private effort can't, because not everyone owns a tractor, not everyone should have to put their back out clearing the roadside, and not everyone is in their active years anymore. I want our roads to have shoulders that aren't crumbling. I want intersections that don't scare you. I want roundabouts where there are now collisions, clear signage where there is now confusion. I want a capable road network design that understands not only how we live today, but that anticipates how we'll be living tomorrow. It's important to be honest about this. To be able to deliver for the future, rates will need to increase over time. That's the reality of a growing community with growing needs and the reality of an economy that undergoes inflation. The cost of materials go up, wages go up, the value of the dollar slowly goes down. This is a fact of life at every level of government and in every household too. Just as you and your family might sit around the dinner table figuring out how you're going to meet higher power bills, rising insurance premiums, or yes, even your Shire rates, your local government does the same. We sit down together line by line and ask, how will we meet the costs of delivering what our community needs? And yes, local government should look for savings, but we can't just cut costs and hope for the best. If we refuse to at least match inflation, then in real terms, we go backwards. Services decline, roads crumble, green spaces wilter. Now, all of this might sound a bit familiar. I'm sure you're all aware of which roads in your neighbourhood need repair. I'm sure many of you have missed the Watkins Road Waste Transfer Station. I'm sure you've observed some of the Shire's green spaces in less than ideal condition, though I have more recently heard favourable feedback about improvements in this area. But the point I make is this: not only do we have a long way to go, but the position we're starting from, so far behind meeting our community's expectations, is less than ideal. Makes it challenging to explain to you why, even though we won't reap the benefits now, it's important to continue to invest in making this community the best it can be. As we invest in our community, in our roads, our services, our public spaces, we're not just improving what we have today. We're shaping a place that more and more people will want to call home tomorrow. And as that happens, as new families move in and new homes are built, the number of people investing in our community through rates increases, meaning the individual household burden over time should lessen. It's why you'll see in our well-developed neighbouring local governments a perceived better value for rates. Those local governments have successfully made their investments and have grown their communities. Now, that's not to say these local governments have done everything right or that we will. I'm sure there will be decisions taken by this council or this local government that some will agree with and others disagree. Depending on who you ask at this table, throughout the history of the Shire of Serpentine-Jarrahdale, you'll undoubtedly hear that we've made some good choices in the past and we've made some very poor ones too. At times, we've laid strong foundations that have supported growth, connected communities, and improved quality of life. But there have also been times when we've let those foundations weaken, when politics may have gotten in the way of planning, when arguments about keeping rates low chipped away at the very services and infrastructure we rely on. We can't afford to repeat those mistakes. Not when our population is growing, our infrastructure is ageing, and not when our community expects more, and rightly so. This is a time for leadership of the kind that doesn't shy away from the hard and unpopular decisions. The kind that puts the long-term interests of our community ahead of personal reputation and short-term headlines. Because our job isn't just to maintain what we have, or as some would risk doing, take us backwards. Our job is to make things better and to take this community forward. Now, in relation to councillor remuneration, this is determined by an independent statutory body, the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal. The only reason councillor remuneration ever enters public debate in the Shire of Serpentine-Jarrahdale is because year after year, for as long as I can remember, what the councillors had at this table have been paid has only ever been determined by politics. Now, it's all well and good that politicians have sat at this table and raced each other to the bottom on what it is they're prepared to accept financially to do this role, but I'll say this: I don't much care for politicians. I don't care if they'll do this role for free. I care that the people sitting at this table actually reflect the community that they represent. I care that an 18-year-old with a connection to the forthcoming generations of adults can, whether they're embarking on full-time employment, a gap year or higher education, entertain contributing their ideas to the local government as a councillor. I care that a trade person labouring hard throughout the day is well compensated should they give up their time away from their families or from their friends and their social life to put their mind to work for our community. I care that a stay-at-home parent, or as is becoming more common, a working parent, I care that they have the option to steer their community forward without having to set their family back. That's what I care about. I care that if you're unemployed, for whatever the reason, whether it be that you've retired from the workforce or maybe even that you've fallen on hard times, I care that you are not barred by financial reasons from an opportunity to make your community a better place to live because there is a politician prepared to do a council role for free. People forget who you were before you become a councillor. There was a time when I was just a volunteer, but now in the community I'm perceived to be many things, often unfair and unproven things, and that's okay, that's part of the role. But if in my time on this council I can eliminate one unnecessary challenge for those good community members who in the future will put their hand up to sit here, then that's what I'll do. And I'll continue to fight for the full and fair remuneration for elected members in this shire. Because right now, those future elected members are just something. They're just a volunteer. They're just a parent. They're just a local sports coach. They're just a public servant. They're just a health professional. But one day, they may also be a councillor, and it could be any one of you in this room. When that day comes, what they used to be tends to be forgotten. But these are ordinary people, as we all are, looking to serve their community in a way that many others aren't prepared to, and they deserve to be paid fairly for the contributions that they make. If we made it so this role is not paid or not paid as well as it can be, bearing in mind that is determined independently, then the people you will see putting their hands up for this role are those who can afford to. Every person in this community, no matter their background or circumstance, should always be offered the dignity to be able to stand for their local government council and contribute to the future. It's incumbent on not just elected members, but the community accepting this fundamental truth. And to the individuals out there who are quite happy to nominate to do the council role and accept no remuneration for it, then I say to you, congratulations. You are, in your life, far more privileged than many in our community will ever be. And if you are elected, I would hope that you do well to remember that underprivileged community members whose lives and livelihoods would be impacted by your decisions. And so to close, Mr. President, I support the motion and I thank Councillor Duggan for her inclusion that Council note that it is committed to the complete depoliticisation of councillor remuneration by October 2027, which by that time, all of us at this table would have contested elections. And that's to ensure that all future elected members receive the fullest fee possible for the work they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against the motion? I'll speak against the motion. And from the outset, I circulate an alternate motion at 5 p.m. on Thursday, and I do foreshadow my alternate motion if this motion is not successful. I used to always use the term, or people used to use the term roads, rates, rubbish, local government. A term I like to use is being responsive, being relevant, and being responsible. So if those three R's in the back of everyone's mind, have a think for what CPI is at the moment. CPI is currently 2.8%. My alternate motion is to have a rate increase of 2.5%. 2.5% with the state government ESL levy will still be a significant rate rise. And it's not lost on me because maybe I was one of those councillors or candidates back in 2017, 2021, re-elected again in 2022, the first directly elected president in 2023. Each of those 4 times I stood for election and won was because I was honest about rates. There can be people in the gallery that are laughing at that comment. My promise to the residents and ratepayers was to keep the rates as low as possible. That is why I cannot sit here tonight and support either the officer's recommendation or the alternate motion, because the alternate motion that's currently before us as councillors is 2.8% plus 2%. That's 4.8%. And it's all in how you explain things. It's a 4.8% rate increase tonight. It's not 2.8 plus 2, it's 4%. And I'll come to that in a moment. Mark Twain made a comment, a quote, famous quote. It's never wrong to do the right thing. And I am tonight going to move a motion or foreshadow a motion that is the right thing. Yes, we need better roads. Yes, we need better footpaths. Yes, we need better services. And I'm damn proud of the work the staff have done, especially under the new Director of Operations, to now have schedules in place, and those things have improved. They have improved with what I would say is a very austere budget. Line by line, we go through the budget to try and save money. It is a budget that is austere, as I said. I did some rough calculations. We got $17 million from the state government to upgrade 3 roundabouts and some roads. $17 million. That equates to a 52% rate increase. If we want those roads, we want those footpaths that people expect today, or tomorrow being the 1st of July 2025, we would probably need to have, conservatively, a 52% rate rise. What am I getting at? What I'm getting at is we need to be responsive, relevant, and responsible. Why should we, and I say we, the majority of councillors are ratepayers, not all, but the majority of councillors are ratepayers. We, as ratepayers, need to be understanding what we can get with our rate increase. If we want those roads now, 52% rate increase, we can't do that. It's quite simply unfathomable. But what we can do is advocate. Why should it be that the ratepayers of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale pay 2% extra? You can call it a levy, you can call it rates, I prefer it a tax. Why should we tax our ratepayers, whether they live in Byford, whether they live in Karrakup, whether they live in Oakford, for roads that are being absolutely destroyed in the southern part of this Shire by trucks that are carting sand? Those trucks that are carting sand is for the state government. The state government development that they're using the trucks on our roads. Why should our ratepayers pay for something that the state government should be paying for? And it's my role as a president to go and advocate for the funding for our roads. We've got $17 million at the state election, and I'd like to say that we can get more. That is my job as a president with the CEO and other elected members to advocate for the money. Quite frankly, the cash cow that's a ratepayer has no more cash to give. It is about time this state government stood up and started supporting us in this Shire. The state government turns around and says there is a housing shortage. The state government turns around and says we need land to develop. I stood in this place here and briefed Cabinet last year and said we have a solution to a housing crisis. We need better roads, we need better sewerage. In fact, we need sewerage. We need power, we need water. Why should the ratepayers supply the funds to make the job easier for the state government? Yes, there's a housing crisis. We've been identified as a solution. But it's about time the state government chipped up and actually came down here and gave us money for what we need. Why should ratepayers pay the bill for roads, power and sewerage? It's not often that I quote the Examiner newspaper, but I'm going to quote the Examiner newspaper tonight. And it's a very interesting article that appeared. In that article, it talks about the state government budget. Once I get to it. The Examiner says, the title is Little for South East in State Budget. The 25-26 state budget announced this week or last week, in what the government has said to be a focus on the cost of living crisis, another good point, cost of living. To deliver on election commitments, the south-east suburbs of Perth have been largely forgotten. That article talks about the $17 million for those 3 roundabouts on Cargodditch Road that we've talked about, and that's great. The focus here is on Metronet. And I quote the Minister, "We took a transport plan to the people of Western Australia and we're wasting no time in delivering it. The investment in this state budget delivers on our commitments and our plan to make public transport more affordable, bus congestion hotspots on our road network, and transition local manufacturing to buses to fully electric. We are investing in a transport network that's also a major creator of local jobs and support businesses." That's great. But what does that do for us as a shire to fix the roads? What does that do for us as a shire that needs to provide those services to our community? Unless we're happy with a 52% rate increase, it's about time the state government stepped up and gave us the funds and support that we need. $1.5 million from the local member to build a footpath in Serpentine. Fantastic. You talk about us waking up and being able to walk down a nice footpath and drive down a nice road. $1.5 million for a footpath that goes from the Serpentine Town Centre to the Serpentine National Park. $1.5 million. Maybe, and I like to be conservative, but maybe my 52% rate increase is well and truly below mark. I'll now turn my attention to the Shothole Borer. That has completely been a disaster. It has been an absolute embarrassment from this state government, the way that they have handled, or should I say not handled, the Shothole Borer. Hey, but that's okay, because the good old residents and ratepayers in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale can commit $100,000. Why should residents and ratepayers of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale do a 0.3% increase to their rates to try and sort out an issue that the state government has been aware of, have ignored, and have literally, pardon the pun, put their head in the sand and thought it would go away? This is about time we tell the state government enough is enough. We are not here to continually put up our residents and ratepayers' rates to fix problems that the state government have known about and have decided to do nothing. The other thing I'll talk about is the lighting at Clem Kentish Oval. People can say things on Facebook and I get upset, that's fine. But one thing I really get upset about is going down and seeing the future of tomorrow, our young people training at an oval. The oval is not fit for purpose. The oval has drainage issues, and they are sitting there trying to train, playing rugby league, using lights from cars. I laugh because it's almost unbelievable. So, putting in temporary lighting won't fix the problem, but it's a short-term solution to help the Serpentine Serpents. But also what it will do is enable those light towers to be moved and to be used throughout the Shire. So it's not a case of putting up permanent lights at Clem Kentish Oval, because we had a master plan for Clem Kentish Oval a couple of years ago, and Council decided not to progress with it. So why do we install permanent lights there when Council has turned around and said, we actually don't want the master plan done? So again, it's a way of us being relevant, responsible and responsive. I'm not going to talk about the councillor sitting fees. That's already been spoken about. I think that's sort of been harped upon. At the end of the day, it is a tough job being a councillor. We can sit here and we can say that we need better roads. Yes, we do. We can turn around and say we need better footpaths. Yes, we do. We can turn around and say the state government's done something wrong, but we'll pick up the pieces from them. But at what cost? At the end of the day, to do all these things, we're probably looking at, as I said, a 52% rate increase. And let's not forget about the elephant in the room. Before we even set the budget tonight, there's also going to be a rate increase on the emergency services levy. That's about an 8% increase on emergency services levy. So the motion that's live at the moment, 4.8%, plus 8%, that's exorbitant. I'll go on the record right now to say that is an exorbitant rate increase, and a rate increase I don't want to be a part of. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, President Coles. Natural areas and agriculture is what sets us apart from other metropolitan local governments. Whilst we're on the fringes, we are a metropolitan local government. Two things that the Shot-Hole Borer impact are our natural areas and our agricultural areas. In this shire, we have stone fruit orchards, apple orchards, pear orchards, among a plethora of other orchards and horticultural properties. By just saying the state government failed us, we shouldn't do anything else, we are putting a nail in the coffin of those agricultural industries in this shire. Completely. We may as well go up Nettleton Road or Jarrahdale Road, knock on the doors of those residents and say, shut up shop, because that's what we're doing to them. With agriculture to a side, our natural areas, Coombia calophylla, Alocasuarina obesa, Xantheria pressii, there are native plants found right across the shire, and in some areas of our shire, found nowhere else in this state. We have so many threatened ecological communities that can no longer be found anywhere else on the Swan Coastal Plain. They are hot property for the Polythagus shot-hole borer. Again, we may as well go and get one of Main Rose bulldozers at the back of this town site at the moment and bulldoze through those areas. With Polythagus shot-hole borer in a reserve, there is no coming back. The dieback or the Phytophthora fungi that the shot-hole borer impregnates into the tree, there is no cure for it. There is not. There are some trials going on at the moment, but even those trials cost money. And we can't just say, the state government failed us, let's hope we can get state government funding. So far, we don't have that. We are pulling the future of our natural areas and our agricultural businesses on a whim and a prayer. And that's not good enough. It's not good enough from any government, especially the state, but they have failed us in this regard, so now it's come to us as local government to do it. I cannot, in good faith, just tell our residents to deal with the degradation of natural areas and their businesses. It's not on. In regards to roads, the 2% rate increase is a lot, and I'm not going to shy away from that. It is a lot. But again, we can't just say the state government has caused this issue, so we're not going to do anything about it. We want to talk about being responsible. We have residents dying on our roads because they are in terrible condition. We heard today from directors that our roads are at the end of their life. If we wait 10 years for this population in this shire to be at a rateable base where we won't be imposing a higher rate increase on people that probably shouldn't be getting it, many more people will be dead. That's the basis of it. We've had people die across this shire for decades because of terrible roads and intersections. Now we have intersections and roads that were built for populations of 5,000, 8,000 people dealing with a population of 38,000. Again, burying their head in the sand and hoping the state government comes and fixes it with $100 million is delusional and it's irresponsible. We're here to better represent our community. And whenever you read any social media post, and I know we shouldn't take social media for its face value as a government or as councillors, but it's on every group every day. I've nearly been killed at an intersection from a sand truck. I've nearly been cleaned up by a livestock truck. Someone's ran the stop sign at Abernethy Road and has smashed inside my car and I flipped my car. Again, do we just bury our heads in the sand, delete and hide those comments on our posts? Again, it's irrational sitting in this chamber and hearing fellow elected members talk, and we just hope that the state government fixes it. Whilst our staff and councillors of past and present have worked tirelessly to secure funding, it's not enough. And we can't just hope the state government will somehow change the way they're operating and thinking to come to our rescue to fix the roads that, quite frankly, are our problem. We can't just say the sand trucks are the state government's issue. It's not. Because those roads should have been built originally to withstand trucks. The fact of the matter is they've bitumised sand tracks and gravel roads that were never built to withstand an ordinary amount of traffic, which is why they're collapsing. if we want roads to be at a safe and reasonable level to withstand just normal traffic for 38,000 people, we need to upgrade them now or within the next 10 years. This 2% rate increase that we're proposing to do this year and then asking future councils to do over the next 2 years is a step in the right direction to meaningfully contribute to fixing our roads in the South Ward, and not just South Ward, most of our shire. But, you know, logically speaking, the South Ward does encompass nearly 3/4 of this shire's area. So the South Ward is a large ward. A lot of the roads are in the South Ward that are terrible. Touching on the equine 30% concession for the trotting complex. As some of you in this chamber would have heard me at the May meeting where we discussed putting this budget out for public comment, I was opposed to the concession, vehemently opposed, and I provided a list of reasons as to why I was. But in my role as a councillor, I'm there to listen to the community and to other councillors as well. I'm still not 100% sold on the idea of a 30% concession will solve the issues in the trotting complex, but I'm willing to listen to my other councillors and the people that responded to the survey that we put out, that it'll go towards helping the retainment of trotting properties within the trotting complex, an area that is unique to our shire and stands us apart from the City of Gosnells, the Shire of Murray, the City of Melville. I mean, just a few years ago, we did our own review and found the equine industry is one of the largest industries in this shire and worth protecting. It's part of our tourism campaigns. We're just about to open an equestrian trail in Jarrahdale, for goodness sake. Whilst they may not be trotters, they're still a fundamental part of this shire, and the trotting industry is as well. So I'm trusting the process on the fact that the 30% concession will go towards other retaining properties in the trotting complex for the use of horses or for the use of paces, and possibly even attract other pacing families to move to the trotting precinct to set up their training facilities in this shire. They are other businesses, and people can shake their heads about this, but they are businesses of the shire. They employ stable hands, they employ feeders, other trainers, other breeders, and that all contributes to our local economy. So whilst we're obviously offering the concession to primary producing properties in the shire, I think it's just as important to protect another agricultural industry in this shire that is so beholden and really is our image for this shire is the equine industry. On that topic though, I have to log back into my computer. They're very long passwords that we have to do for our laptops. If I may ask a question to Councillor Duggan.
Yes.
Apologies, Councillor Duggan, if I've missed it, if I've missed the information. However, with your old motion, with regard to the trotting complex concession, I'm not sure if it has included the transition of the 49 of the 199 properties still on an unimproved rating methodology to be transitioned to GRV. Can you help me with that?
Thank you for the question. Are you happy to provide an answer, Councillor Duggan?
I'm happy to throw that straight to the Director of Corporate Services. Thanks.
Thank you, Director.
It's a difficult question to answer. I'm going to say yes. Just we don't really know how many, like we've modelled a certain amount of people coming across, so it's sort of not really a relevant question, really. We'll have to see what comes.
Thank you, Director. Does that help you, Councillor Jarrett?
Somewhat. So, just to clarify, if this motion does make it through, of the UV properties within that trotting complex, would they move over to GRV to then receive the concession, or would they receive concession on the UV rating?
Right, they'll receive the concession on the rates they're currently on. So this year it would be the GRV. If council approves the move over and the state government minister also in charge approves that, then it'll be a different rating category next year. But this year it'll be, if you're on GRV, your concession will be on your GRV rates. If you're on UV, your concession will be on the UV rates.
Thank you, Director. You happy? Sorry, does that answer your question, Councillor Jarrett?
I have a follow-up question now. And again, this could just mean misunderstanding the entire process. Would it be possible to add an amendment that those properties can be transitioned to GRV before receiving that concession?
Yes.
Thank you, Director. Are you minded to do something then, Councillor Jarrett?
Yeah, thank you, Director. If I may, Councillor Duggan, would you be open to an amendment of your motion?
I'm just going to seek some advice from the CEO.
Yeah.
We have had nearly an hour debate on something.
Yeah.
Never good decision-making doing something like this. I'm just going to get some advice from the CEO. Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. So what are you minded to do?
I'm just hoping to amend or to add in that the properties receiving the concession are transitioned to GRV from UV rating methodology.
While that's happening, can I just remind members of the gallery, please, to stop talking? I can hear it up here, which means recording will pick it up. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm just conscious of your comments earlier on, and I'm just conscious of how complex we're entering into something.
No, it's okay. It's pretty simple. Just if we go to point 13, because as a policy, as part of this resolution, council is going to adopt the policy, and all we need to do is in 13 go add another eligibility clause that you be rated on GRV methodology.
So, Director, can you help Councillor Jarrett with the wording? Would you like assistance with the wording, Councillor?
Yes, please, Director.
Yeah, go on.
Mr. President, that can either be done as an amendment or with the consent of the mover and the seconder. The options available from Councillor Jarrett.
Methodology. Yep, that's it.
Councillor Jarrett, are you happy with that?
Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Councillor Duggan, as a mover, are you happy with that amendment?
Yep, I'm happy, thanks.
And Councillor, you were the seconder, so you're obviously happy.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? How many properties would that pertain to?
I think we modelled 50. There's 199 in there. I think approximately 50 were on the...
So the 140 odd are currently on UV?
Correct.
Okay. I think it's bad process doing that when people have already debated on this item, but the mover and seconder are happy with that. I've been given advice by the CEO that's lawful. My opposition still remains. Did you want to finish your debate, Councillor Jarrett?
Yeah, thank you for your help, Director. Manager. With all what I've said, I just think that if we want to be a responsible and responsive local government, this budget in this old motion does so. And I commend to my fellow councillors, I commend the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. I think we're back to people speaking against, which I don't think there will be. Councillor Mazzini, I saw you had your hand raised. Did you want to speak for?
If you would like to permit that, that would be
So
great.
under standing orders, section 10.7, call for debate. This is a very important matter, being the adoption of the rates. So I am minded to go out of sequence to allow you to speak for the motion, if that's what you'd like to do.
I appreciate that.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. President. I will keep this very, very short because every councillor and president in the room tonight has already said everything I wanted to say, but in a much better way. So I will keep this very, very simple. I am a ratepayer in the Shire, and I personally don't know how I'm going to afford this rate increase myself, but like everything at this point in time, we just have to make do, and I will figure it out. I've never ran on the ticket of being against or stopping rate rises because it's not achievable and it's unrealistic. The cost of living is rising, and that means all the services that we use and need as a Shire are rising, and we have to cover the costs. We can bicker all day about the state government not doing enough, and it's probably true, but we're wasting time in the interim waiting around for action. It's incredibly frustrating that it has to be covered by our ratepayers, but we don't have a large amount of commercial properties to help us out, and our population just simply isn't there yet to see the curve go down. I'm up for re-election in October. I don't take any decision that we make here tonight lightly, but I am not going to jeopardise the economic stability and the safety of our residents to win votes. We have to start thinking long term. As our Director of Corporate Services continues to say every single budget meeting, we are riding a wave right now, a really, really steep wave, and it's going to take a lot of time for it to flatten out. It absolutely sucks, but we are, in reality, we're a hyper-growth Shire, and it's our reality at the moment. I'm personally not in favour of any special area rates, be that of a discount or to get additional services. The concession for our horse trainers in the Trotting Complex precinct, it doesn't sit well with me. I don't think it gives nearly as much community benefit as something like the primary producer farming discount, but I have listened to Councillor Duggan's answers and Councillor Jarrett's debate tonight, and I'm starting to see the purpose of the concession. I'm willing to give it a go and reassess in the next year reassess in the new year. I think, yeah, that pretty much sums up. Everyone else has said everything I'd like to say. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. Thank you for all councillors participating in this debate. I think it's been very helpful. Councillor Duggan, would you like to close?
Thanks very much, Mr. President. First thing I guess I'd like to say is acknowledge the hard work by President Coles to put forward an alternate motion. There are a number of things that he had in his motion which I copied. I copied his homework. And part of the reason for that was because I could see the strengths in what he had put forward and wanted to incorporate that into other things that I wanted to see in the budget as well. If I may respond firstly to Councillor Mack's concern or concerns, and even though it's great rhetoric, I have not seen anywhere, either written beforehand or this evening, where there's either a foreshadowed alternative motion or ideas or alternate wordings that could reflect where you would like us to try and limit the budget. Certainly if I had heard them, as I had with President Coles, I would have looked to see how I could have worded that and put that into the alternate motion that I put forward. President Coles, I know your concerns for ratepayers. I know how much this community means to you, and I know how well that's received by our community. My concern is that if we don't look at putting additional funding towards our roads, we are just doing what every council has done in the past, and that is we are not making this a better place. We are not actually looking long term. We are just keeping our head above water. We need to stop doing that. This 2%, this additional 2%, you call it a tax, levy, it does not stop advocating. It does not mean that we stop asking the state government. In fact, it's the opposite. We turn around and we say, look, we are prepared to put this money forward. We are prepared also to put $100,000 towards the Polyphagus shothole borer, and it gives us strength to then advocate stronger. So I'd like to thank you both for your thoughts and for your debate this evening. And I will move on to my prepared closing statements. So often we hear our residents say to us, what do we get for our money? And it is not always about the rate amount that is set, but it is about being able to show our residents, give our residents something for their money. This is the first budget that we have put aside money specifically for a roads budget. This is now that we can start delivering on the visual impacts that our residents need, from our increased and improved scheduling so that we're completing our parks, gardens, our road grading, our footpaths, to this finance which will go towards increasing and making better our roads, to looking at our asset management, which are now in place, so we can predict where our expenditures are needed in the budget for our assets in the future. That is incredibly important because it means that we can be tighter with our budget, and we know when we've got additional funding that can go to the one thing our residents tell us the most, and that is money. For mine, this is the budget with the most transparency. For us to specifically say we've got this money that is just going towards roads is as transparent as what we can possibly be. One comment that almost 4 years ago in my first meeting with the Director of Corporate Services, I said to him, which is a comment that came up again just before this meeting, it's none of my business what other people think of me, providing I know I'm doing the right thing. This alternate motion that I've put forward, I have spent many hours on. I have taken into consideration what has been given to us from our residents in feedback, what's been said to me on the street, what's been said by our councillors, what questions have been asked. And I have tried to put forward a motion that allows for those things that our community and our councillors feel the strongest about. I'm not swayed by comments on Facebook. This is a budget, this is a recommendation that is for the best of our community and for our Shire moving forward. So those who wish to comment, those who wish to tie my name directly to this, do so as you wish. And with that, I put this forward to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. All those in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those against? Motion is carried 4-2.
Mr President, we will need a reason for the difference from the officer recommendation from Councillor Duggan as the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Can you please provide that, Councillor Duggan?
Thanks, President Coles. Reasons for difference is to allow for community feedback and expectation. And amendments. And amendments in line with councillors' requests. Thank you.
Are you happy with that wording as per the screen there, Councillor Duggan?
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us on to agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is motions which notice has been given. There is nil. That brings us on to agenda item number 8, which is urgent business, which there is nil. And that then brings us on to agenda item 9, which is closure. So There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:44 p.m. Thank everyone for their attendance and please travel home safely. Good night.